Okay. Testing. Seems to be working. Alright. Now I might have to turn down the music before. Well, it's not that loud to start with. And it's been like 2 weeks. Jack, what are you throwing? Jack, what are you throwing in there? Okay, well you'll damage them, you know, they're not indestructible, you know.
I'm not talking about those ones, like this one. What is that?
Oh, what's that? The one here, let me see that. So this is the...
Skippable or is this purple? I don't know.
Yeah, you're supposed to... It's supposed to... What is it supposed to do? It doesn't seem to do it. Oh, there it goes. It sort of comes apart on its own, huh?
That's
Cool.
supposed to hurt into
Alright.
the car.
Alright. Well, the way the audio broadcast is going here is very much akin to how my life has been going lately. Very disorganized and full of kids. Jack's home on spring break this week, so... yes, and he's a little hyper today, too, so... Anyway, I finished the comic art. The comic is all set to go. I'm probably going to work on it a bit later, but I wanted to take some time and honestly just do some free drawing because it's been a couple of weeks, and I think as I mentioned earlier, I had a rather stressful morning where my smoke detector went off in the hallway this morning around 6:30. Which, of course, you know, whenever a smoke detector goes off, that's a pretty scary situation. But turns out it was probably something, and it really didn't go off. It just sort of beeped a couple of times really loudly and then stopped, which is not normal behavior for a smoke detector. But it certainly was enough to set me on edge for looking for problems or CO2 or other things that may be wrong. Everything seems fine. And I got another detector. I replaced it with a newer one that I had, and that nothing else has been set off. So anyway, I'm just sort of assuming that it was something wrong with the detector at this point. So yes, that was that was Han Solo's blaster from my own youth. I have 1978 version. There's a 77 version and a 78 version, and it's a 1978 version. Of course, I only know that because I looked up specifics on it just out of curiosity. But yeah, I've had that forever. It's one of the... I also had the laser rifle from the Stormtrooper laser rifle, which I think is still in my closet in my parents' house. But, you know, the funny thing about the blaster is it was always a favorite toy gun of mine when I was growing up, because it has a really particularly nice balance to the darn thing. Of course, it's based on the Mauser, which I didn't know at the time, but certainly makes for a comfortable weapon. But I've kept it, like I've kept a lot of things over the years, I guess. Now, if there's some question about what I'm drawing today, I don't actually know. This is, well, one thing that I've got here is this paper, if you'll notice, is Acme punched, which is an animation industry standard punch, which I do not have one of these punches. I would love one, but they're like $500 to get one or so. Because I would much rather use that than a 3-hole punch because, well, it looks cooler. But $500 for just punches that look cooler is a little rich. What I have here is I have a whole ream of paper that I bought back in, oh God, 84, 85, that I never used. Acme punched. This is 16 field, which is larger than the 12 field stuff. And just for shits and giggles, I guess, I decided I'm sort of getting a sense of how it would be to draw on. Obviously, I draw a little differently than I did back in the 80s. and it feels a little waxy, but and it's also thin. It's designed to be a little transparent, and it's really not designed for final work, I guess. But I figured I'd scribble on it and get a feel for it at least. As much as I would like to use the nice ceramic mugs, and I like this one. This was a gift from a friend. I mean, the coffee doesn't stay warm for very long. So I may go get my insulated mug. But, I'm curious. The artwork, like I said, is done. I'll flip through it again just to kind of share what's going on here. It's all shaded and ready to go. And the thing is, it may seem like, and it did. It seems like, and it actually in many ways totally did take 2+ weeks to do the artwork for this comic. But the truth of the matter is that in this past 2 weeks, I've been so busy moving out of the warehouse and all the other, and doing some shipping, and I've just been so busy and so away from my desk that normally, under normal conditions, doing this, I would be sitting here right now going, okay, I got to start working on the next comic. But what I've got now is I finished up. In fact, I finished up today. I got the last of it this morning, and I'm sitting here with basically artwork for a finished comic, which is nice. So I can get right back into the comicking, even though I was a couple of weeks away from comicking. But the nice thing is I've got a comic. I'm not sitting here going, okay, now I got to do a comic. I actually have one. So. I don't have any particular theme to what I'm working on with this sketch, but oh, can you hear Jack yelling in the next room? Jack, what are you doing? Is that your exploding car? Yeah. Oh, in regards to blankets, no, I still have them. I still have some blankets to ship. I've got some international orders to ship. I've got books to pack and ship. I've got a lot to do. So, but the warehouse sort of came to. I had to. I've been needing to get do that move for almost a year now, really, and things just kept getting so crazy on such a regular basis that I never was able to. Every month it was like I couldn't do it this month, can't do it this month, and finally you just have to sort of just take it and just do it, and that's what I did. So. And I tried to I got some shipping done before I really got into it, but I still have more to do now that. It's trouble with being just one person, and one person who's not particularly good at multitasking. I end up with more to do than I can handle, which is, boy. And I think, even though the Mugi and the Yakugashi stuff came out okay, boy, this particular drawing doesn't seem to be coming together too well. It's amazing how subtle the shape of the face is when you're No. Now I have to change the title of this broadcast and also sort of say what I'm working on. The trouble is I'm still not quite 100% sure yet. I'm trying to just sort of let a drawing or two happen here and see where they go. And what'll happen is if I don't feel the drawing coming together, I'll switch over to the other machine and start working on scanning and cleaning up those drawings, which I'm going to do later anyway because I want to get the comic done. But yeah, it's been I don't know. I mean, it feels like it's been forever, but it has actually been at least 2 weeks. I mean, gosh, I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was working on those Search of Lost Wings ones. Trying out some different paper. Yeah, well, I don't know how much longer I'm going to work on this one. This is just sort of a get started thing. Yeah, well, one of the troubles is that when you're... Yes, there's some immodesty going on in some of these panels, and, you know, I mean, some people might think that there's I'm being a little fan servicey, but I am actually to a certain degree, because that's sort of a running joke of the beginning of the chapter with Pierrot's inability to get service on his phone. So I'm sort of playing with that. But of course, you know, you can take a joke too far, or a joke might not be appreciated per se, and certainly don't want to do it at the expense of the you know, self-worth of the characters and per se. But this paper isn't too bad to draw on. Now, of course, one of the things about if there was ever a drawing style that is not amenable to a sort of an animation approach, it would be mine at this point. Especially since, I mean, I don't rely on finished or very solid defined lines to you know, and when you're dealing with animation, you gotta have lines that, like, for instance, if you're drawing the hair, I mean, the hair, every line needs to be able to, that you put down, needs to have a place to go or a place to stay. Yeah. Flag covers the cargo. Yeah, that's I like that. I'm gonna have to use that somewhere. But sort of brings there's a joke there about capture the flag from the old FPS days. That if I wanted to play with that, that'd be kind of fun. But have I ever had to switch to drawing another scene because Jack came into the room? No, actually, I haven't. I've never really worked on anything that I would consider I don't know if inappropriate's the word, but I mean, you know, some of the stuff is like, I mean, he's 8, so I don't think anything really triggers. I don't think there's anything particularly bad about what I've done. I mean, he may question why is Daddy drawing girls in bikinis. No, I mean, you know, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. There's nothing particularly wrong with anything that he's seeing. And I haven't done any. I mean, I'm really one of those odd artists who really has. I don't do or haven't done artwork on any sort of regular basis that would be either, you know, pornographic or not safe for work. I mean, I've done very little, if any. So, I mean, most of the suggestiveness that you find in my drawings and my artwork comes from the situation, from the pose, from the look of the characters. I mean, I used to, I wouldn't call it boast, but I mean, I like to look at it as being, you know, I could draw an H doujinshi with, you know, with no actual, you know, visual pornographic content that could be if, you know, with, if I tried really, if I did it right, could be more, what's the word? I don't know, not serviceable, but could be what would I call it? Well, I'm not even sure of the terminology. That's how poor I am with such things. But when I was a kid, I mean, God, you know, when I first started drawing, I mean, I think there's a lot of artists who have this problem. I mean, you've always got the ones who, I'll have to channel this gal a little bit here for a moment, in saying something that is more arousing, I guess, than the more blatant, overt doujinshi stuff. I mean, it's a challenge that I think that I could do if I wanted to, and actually that challenge is there for some point in the future. Didn't I do something a while back? Not really. I mean, you know, I mean, there are two things that I'd want to protect Jack from seeing, and one of them would be if he saw, you know, something that was explicitly perverse. You know, we're not the types that would try to shield Jack from, I don't know. I mean, I come from a very reserved and conservative background and upbringing where, you know, the old sexuality doesn't exist sort of thing, which I don't think is particularly healthy, you know. I mean, it's as kids become old enough to understand stuff, you know, appropriately exposure to it would be, I think, is fine. At least you can see, you know, what I have a tendency to draw. Of course, it is true I'm drawing a girl standing her in her, basically the top with no pants on, so you could say that there's something. Anyway. Oh yeah, years ago they were really, for some reason, you know, there's the old saying, methinks thee doth protest too much, and I used to have, and actually I still do, I had kind of a tenet about my work, which was like, I really don't want to see, you know, pornographic doujinshi of any of the MT characters, and I used to say I'd quit MT if I ever saw any. And, you know, a lot of people, of course, some was done, more specifically to try to piss me off, but I didn't view that. That wasn't the point. It's not a question of whether, you know, pornographic work or not. I like to look at it as that the characters, you know, it's what would be appropriate for the characters. Because you don't want to, you know, treat them, you know, like, you know, I like to treat the characters like they're people, you know. And to be honest with you, a more service-oriented drawing of Komugiko is actually something that I can draw or could draw. Reason being is that's sort of Kimiko's character. I mean, not Kimiko. I mean Mugi's character. You know, she's little wild around the edges and has had her sort of, you know, wild out sort of thing that she's done and still does from time to time, probably. So it would not be inappropriate that such a thing would exist for a character like her. Kimiko, on the other hand, a little bit more private than that, you know, and exposing her that way would kind of feel inappropriate. But yeah, I used to sort of be like that. I used to say, you know, no, I don't want anybody doing, you know, pornographic anything with MT characters. And a lot of people sort of took that to task and picked on me and said, well, for some reason, well, actually, I had some artwork up that was a little more racy than normal stuff. I think one or two characters were partially topless or something like that. Sort of a hidden side. I had done it during a moment of peak when I was younger and it was still up. And I think people heard about it and were looking for it, and we sort of hid it and didn't let anybody find it. We took it down and nobody could find any evidence of it. It became a great search then, and they were convinced, a lot of people were convinced that what I was doing, you know, me with this very sort of, I don't really like the, you know, the pornographic treatment of characters, etc. and so forth, was somehow, what's the term? You know how it is. You always hear about the, you know, the extremely, you know, family conservative religious Christian guy turns out to be the biggest perv with like all sorts of that sort of thing. So they were convinced themselves that I had done like lolly pornographic stuff, much like Ken Akamatsu had done, because it was pretty common for you know, manga artists, it still is, to have a body of adult work out there that they've done. I said I did not. So they thought I was being a huge hypocrite. So they just hounded me and hounded me and hounded me, because they were convinced that because I had this sort of, I wouldn't call it purist stance, but you know, that I didn't like the point I was trying to be. They thought I was being an absolute hypocrite. So finally, you know, I said, okay, fine, you want it? Here it is. So I shared it with everybody. I said, this is what they're looking for, this is what it is, you know, fine, pick on me. And it was boring as hell. it was in the modern internet. What I considered stuff to be embarrassed by it was nothing. So yeah, they quickly lost interest in it at that point. I think they were more upset with the idea that I was trying to hide something.
Daddy,
Yeah, but what is it?
can we go see J. Barremore's?
You want to go see CJ Barrymore's?
Yeah.
Why?
Spring break and paperwork, taking a vacation.
Well, it's not quite warm enough, but dude, it's snowing outside. And CJ Barrymore's is 2 hours away. What do you want to do there?
Race go-karts.
You want to drive go-karts. What about Mama?
Oh,
She's at work.
when she comes back, can we?
No, I don't think so. We'll go. I don't know if we're going to go now. I think it's a little early for that, though.
Are we gonna go?
At some point this summer. Besides,
It's such a long way away.
You're sick. Are you sick?
But how am I going to drive go-karts now?
Well, you can't drive go-karts now.
How am I going to try to do anything?
You get the whole week off. You can go. You can play video games and with your cars and goof off and do whatever you want. Watch TV, right?
Yeah.
And you're bored. Welcome to the problem with vacations, my son.
You guys won't give me anything to do. Because you can't go anywhere.
What do you?
We aren't going anywhere.
What do you mean? You've got something we're doing tomorrow. We've got something that we got to go to the dentist on Wednesday, and then you got something else. We're going to see Papa John on Thursday, and then on Friday, you got something else we got to do. So you're busy. You're busy all week, boy.
Yeah. Thanks, Daddy. Thanks, Daddy. Daddy. Thanks, Daddy.
So you don't want to be bored.
Thanks, Daddy.
Hey, we got
That's
stuff.
best.
Well, we try to keep you occupied. Granted, you have the week off.
Yeah.
We'll do stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But Daddy's trying to work right now.
What do
Okay.
we have to do?
Well, I have to do some drawings.
No,
Why
what
don't you
do
go-
we have to do?
You'll see.
I'll watch some race car crashing.
Okay, go watch some race car crashes. Yep. Yeah. Well, he's not feeling well today, so which doesn't help. He built a Formula One car out of a box, which is pretty cool. It's got an engine and everything. Anyway, okay. Well, this is. I would consider this is not a bad drawing, but this is a very static drawing. I mean, there's nothing really. Okay, so let's see here. Oh God. All right, now let me get some paper out and see. So I guess it's okay to draw on, but you know the nature of animation work needs to be. You know, much fewer lines and much better. Just what would happen is that at this point you would there would be some simplification that would happen. Big technical. Yeah, he built an F1 car. He's put a spoiler on it. It's got wheels on it. It's got a front spoiler, the front wing. It's got a steering wheel. And it's a rectangular steering wheel. I had to get some bolts out, but I think it's funny that many mangaka draw their adult work under a different name, but most people know who they are anyway. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, some people could totally do that. Unfortunately, with my style, actually there are a couple of Easter eggs out there if people know where to look. There's at least 3 that I have put under different names and just out there in a couple of different image things, and people have found a couple of them over time. But you can't tell it's my work. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I finished, but my objection to, this was actually before, I mean, you know, honestly, since, you know, anime and manga fandom, which was still pretty a small thing back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was sort of growing. I wouldn't say it was much more innocent, but, I mean, it certainly took on a sort of acrid, sort of nasty element to it that, you know, like the, you know, the whole 4chan element, which I mean, it's fine, but you know, it certainly was a lot more. You know, I've sort of always viewed anime and manga as a nice thing. As you know, I certainly wasn't a, you know, the aggressively nasty fandom that just sort of run into every once in a while these days. You know, like for instance, I mean, the purest example of it would be today. You know, they refer to, you know, anime fan. You know, it's my waifu. You know, it's the waifu stuff, and it almost sounds kind of creepy. Honestly, it's very pervy, creepy kind of sort of obsession with characters. Back in the 90s, we used to build shrines to characters that we liked, and it was sort of a. I mean, you could tell it's a different mindset. You know, where one was some sort of odd possession thing going on, and the other was sort of a worship thing. I still refer to, you know, the Church of Uri and all this other stuff. You know, and you know, an extension of that was, trust me, there's nothing new. I mean, this is American fandom we're talking about, but in Japanese fandom, the, you know, overt use and abuse of characters is absolutely nothing new. And one of the things, you know, I've sort of looked at doujinshi as you have a series that goes to a point and stops, and then what you have is you have fans who create doujinshi, which are works that extend a character's life, or gives an extension beyond the anime series or the manga series for that character. And my objection really came down to, I mean, it really bothered me that you'd have a favorite character like Brewery, and then who's great in Nadeshiko, and just one of my favorite characters and all this other stuff. But in the doujinshi works about her, I mean, almost all of them were kind of like rape and abuse kind of stuff, and it really bothered me. So I sort of took on a mindset as like I didn't want Megatokyo characters to be put through that, because they're still characters, they're still the same characters. So another example would be Lucky Star, Kagami, and if you look beyond the series, there's sort of a fanon thing about her and the other stuff that is, I mean, there's some innocent levels to it, but some of it's not. It's really kind of disturbing what kind of a post-anime life the fans as a group have given some of these characters. And it's not unusual. This happens with a lot of things. So that's honestly why I'm not a fan of doujinshi. I really am not a big fan of doujinshi in general. It's good that it exists, but it also is a reflection of, it can be a reflection of some of the nicest things about the fan world, but it also can really show a lot of really nasty sides of people, and unfortunately that comes out a lot in a lot of things, and not always. Some really wonderful stuff was done about Sentimental Graffiti. There was a series of doujinshi that, it was adult doujinshi, all right, but the loving relationships that it showed all these girls in as part of that was really delightful. But that's not always the case. I mean, most of them kind of reflect a creepy, weird, misogynistic nastiness that really is not pleasant, and it's led to, the whole 2D, 3D thing is much more of a thing now than it was back in the 90s. And one of the things that I liked about anime and manga when I first got into it was I felt that the female characters and the characters in general in anime and manga, while still, maybe not 100% realistic, there was more of a real feel to a lot of them. They were more realistic. They were more representational of what people might really be like, as opposed to, some of the ridiculous Hollywood crap out there. And that's why, there's a lot of anime and manga these days that sort of pushes this idea of the 2D girls that don't really behave like real people. And I steer clear of those completely, because they don't do anything for me. So, a lot of people, there's a lot of fandom that's like, oh, I don't like 3D girls, I just like the 2D kind, the fantasy kind. That's fine, but it doesn't do anything for me, that's for sure. So yeah, and I'm a little, I try not to. Megatokyo has never been very fan servicey. Although if it has, it's always been for a point or a reason. And unfortunately, recently, it's been a little more fan servicey than I think I would want. It's just because of what's been going on. And because it takes so long to get comics out sometimes, and I need to get the comic output out, so I can get past some of these moments of fan service in understandable ways. You can. Oops. I mean, like for instance, Mugi falling out of her blouse. There's a reason for it, to be honest with you. First of all, she's busty enough that moving around the way she does, a snap front thing is gonna pop a little. I mean, it's just physics. It's just actual physics. But there's also a reason for that will show up, hopefully probably in the next comic, actually. So, sometimes you'll go to a length to set up some jokes or some humor. For instance, the whole can't get any service thing, running joke. When you run those things in the background, you got to be careful that you use the right touch to it. If you overdo it, it sort of loses its touch a little bit. And one of the jokes I sort of made it's a running fake. You saw it. I sort of ran with the running joke, and I will see how it works into the comic. Is like, you've heard of trigger control, where you keep your finger off the trigger. You have to, trigger control is a trigger discipline. Where your trigger finger discipline. That's why button discipline became sort of a joke that I could totally see. With Mugi being as sort of flailing as she has a tendency to be, her her daughter's frustration with mom and her button discipline, I think is a pretty amusing joke, really. Does it objectify and over sexualize a little? I don't know. I mean, there's sexualization that is overt and is only for the service of the people who are reading it. Then you get the kind that's sort of just an extension of that character, and it's part of what makes that character interesting, and that's how I think it is with Moogie. I mean, a certain amount of sauciness with her is just part of her character. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has ever noticed, but the difference between American fandom and Japanese fandom for any anime series. Over the years, I mean, anime has been popular enough here in the States since the 2000, 2002, 2003. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's really very little intersection, very little sharing of obsessiveness or even communications, really, between American fans and Japanese fans. I think that what you've got is you've got a body of work that means different things to different people. And, I think that sometimes it's similar things, but, American fans have their own obsessions and Japanese fans have their own obsessions, and nary do the two meet that often. So it's a very sad kind of thing, really, if you really look at the history of it and where things are at. I mean, that's why, you may have anime and stuff that's built to a certain... Well, Nadeshiko is a fine example, actually, of the kind of thing that you get. You get a series that they obviously, went to Lacho. They created a main character who was supposed to be the one that everybody fell in love with. Eureka is supposed to be big and bubbly and happy, and I mean, there was even the joke about the fact that the only reason she's a captain is because she's like that. And a lot of other wonderful characters in there as well, and definitely an example of how you take a character out of that mix and they don't really stand quite so well on their own, per se, except for Ruri. But they're all so important to the overall mix. I mean, it's but and then you have like I said, you have Yuri, who's supposed to be Yurika, is supposed to be the main character, and everybody's supposed to love. But then if along comes, come on. Why is that stuck in there? There we go. And along comes, you've got this minor character here, Ruri, who's actually on top of a dragon, but forget the dragon for a moment, who comes along, and she's kind of a secondary character. She's there, she's important to an extent, but certainly not, and becomes the character who steals the show, and absolutely stole the show. She was definitely the most popular character in the series. And I think what happens is, people will create these things, and to a certain extent, sometimes you can't control what people get out of it. So, oh yeah, I've seen. Let's see. But anyway, yeah, like when it comes to service-oriented stuff, I mean, when you're dealing with Kimiko, no, you wouldn't see. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable drawing anything, excessive romantic content, let's call it, with Kimiko, and not with Erika. She's a much more private person than that. You could see it popping up with Junko, because that has been part of her past. It is part of what's happened with her. And you totally could see that with Mugi, because she's a bit more overt. I mean, she's kind of out there and ignored, if that makes sense. So, but let's see. I've seen translations of Japanese. Yeah, and I myself have had some friends who are Japanese, who tell you there's an intensity to some of that fandom that doesn't make me very comfortable. So. Yeah, and then you have shows that failed in their original markets but were loved in the U.S. Oh, Chobits is the prime example of that. I mean, Chobits was a complete flop in Japan, but it was like huge here for comparatively. So yeah, you get that sort of. And Dead Man Wonderland's another one. And so what you're dealing with is something that was created for one market, but is repurposed in another market in other ways. I mean, I think that and sometimes not quite. In fact, I think it's funny sometimes, in the U.S. market, we may get something out of a series that was totally not part of the original draw for the original. So that happens a lot. Yeah, Chobits, I'm not a fan of Chobits. Chobits is an incredibly depressing, dark sort of thing for me. I guess that actually didn't turn out so bad. This drawing, I'm sitting here talking a lot today, but sort of trying to get my head back into things. Shade that up a little bit. But yeah, a lot of people, I sort of got a reputation as being somebody who refused to do anything, like I was. What it came down to is it made people feel like, okay, are you judging me because I like, porn, ecchi doujinshi or whatever? I mean, truth is not really. I think it comes down to, it's like, for instance, the reason why I watch some shows but mostly don't watch a lot of anime. I read a lot more manga than I read anime, and there's a lot of stuff that's real popular. I've never read or watched Naruto because I'm just not a fan of that, the stuff, it's you gotta. I'm very much consume what I like. I don't consume what I think I'm supposed to like. For a while, when I was into anime years ago, I used to watch everything. Anything I could get my hands on. Always tried to watch all the new shows that came out. And this was back during the VHS trading days. So, I had to actively get all this stuff and watch it. And I'd sit through seasons of things that did nothing for me, And eventually, at some point, I just I don't care. I've got 6 shows here that I'm watching. I don't care about any of them. And sort of letting go and backing off of that for a while. I didn't watch anything, wasn't into anything. And then you get to the point that you start realizing that it's more about liking what you want to like, what means something to you, and that's not always going to be the same thing as it is to everybody else. And that, I'm going to tell you, when you're a fan, it can leave you left out. Like, for instance, I had totally different feelings about Madoka Magica than a lot of other people, and I just watched it for different reasons and didn't watch it for different reasons as a result. And it was you sort of feel left out when you're an anime fan, manga fan, whatever, and you've got stuff that you're really into. Before it was popular, it wasn't that big a deal because nobody liked what you liked. That was kind of the weird thing about being an anime and manga fan. Nobody knew what it was. And of course, that is not really the case anymore. But these days, you got to be careful because you can fall into the trap of, it's popular and I need to stay up with everything, and then you're trying to stay up with everything, and then it feels like a big contest, and you get people get into fights and battles about, your anime is shit and you should feel bad. I don't think. Let's see. I love Madoka. What was your opinion of it? I like everything. I have a very visceral sort of. I don't watch stuff a lot because I get very emotionally connected to whatever I'm watching. If I get into it, there's an emotional connection to it. I have a tendency to reread books, reread novels, reread manga because I know that there's a emotional payload to it that I like. As opposed to, I have trouble watching stuff that, sometimes stuff will get under my skin that does not end well and doesn't go well and I don't like it, and that it actually is damaging. I get so it's an emotional commitment. With Madoka Magica, I sort of started not liking where it was going, and there are some things to it, there are some elements to it that I'm not comfortable with. So I actually, and I'm very, what's the word? When you're into a single, one character. I have a tendency to follow one character in a series. I'm a non-harem type person. I really am. I'm not a fan of harem stuff. I'll pick one character and that's what I'll get into. And, and Kyoko was very much the character that I was into in Madoka Magica. When I saw that coming, I backed off of it, and I actually rage quit. I just was not going to watch the rest of it. Now I know that it's gone places and other stuff like that, but at the same time, it's kind of like a pride thing. I refuse to watch the rest of it. So, and as a result, I have great opinion of it. I think it's a fantastic series, but I have yet to see anything past episode 9. I just can't do it because of the way I feel about Kyoko, and I understand things. You get into the whole time mixing, but the problem is that you can't abuse a character and say, oh, well, we went back in time and made it better. No, that character was abused for one reason or the other, at least in my mind. So, and it's not a logical thing, it's a emotive thing. So that's how I feel. I mean, Angel Beats was another one. I absolutely love that series. And that way that they wrapped it up the last couple episodes, I quit right at the end. And I'm still pissed off about how they ended it. Because they didn't go the directions I wanted them to go. It felt better. It felt wrong, And, Evangelion was one of the classic examples of a series where those characters, I really felt like those characters were created and they were given the kinds of personalities they were given. They were made to appeal to the audience, and then they were used as abuse tools to sort of really elicit responses from the audience. And I gotta tell you, I don't like that. I see that sometimes, and I hate that when that happens. So, yeah. Do I advocate this, or do I get on my high horse and tell other people they need to feel that way? No, I don't. In fact, I would never. In fact, anybody asked me, should I watch Madoka Magica? Hell yeah, watch it. I might tell them my own feelings about the matter. But in the end, like you say here, yesterday someone in the forum was complaining anime watching had become a chore. There are probably a lot of anime fans who felt that way over time. You get to a point that you're watching everything and it feels, you're looking for that charge that you get from the really good ones. And sometimes you gotta watch a few of them to find out whether they're worth watching anyway. So, but yeah. So, yeah, I have my own feelings on these things, and I wouldn't claim them to be, I would never push them on anyone, I guess that's what I'm saying. But at the same time,